Captain Kalen stood on the bridge of the Vigilant, his slender fingers tapping rhythmically against the command console. The vast expanse of disputed border space stretched before him, a canvas of shimmering nebula gases rich with rare elements that both beautified and complicated their patrol route. The Kylosian Defense Force had maintained this border for centuries, guarding their ancient civilization against the unpredictable cosmos beyond. Status report, Kalen commanded, his voice measured and formal, as was the Kylosian way. All systems nominal, Captain. Border sensors detect no unauthorized entries, replied Lieutenant Merrick from the monitoring station, his posture perfect, his tone equally ceremonial. Kalen nodded, satisfied yet restless. These routine patrols had become increasingly monotonous over his 20-cycle career. The Kylosian way valued stability above all else. Their civilization had persisted for millennia through strict adherence to tradition, cautious diplomacy, and technological advancement carefully controlled to avoid societal disruption. Their sleek, crystalline ships were marvels of engineering, but their tactics and protocols had remained largely unchanged for generations. Lately, however, reports of unexplained anomalies had been increasing. Strange energy signatures, unexplained disappearances of minor outposts, intelligence from allied species suggesting new players entering this sector of space. The High Command had dismissed most concerns, attributing them to natural phenomena or exaggeration from less technologically advanced allies. But Kalen harbored doubts. Captain, Sensor Officer Talon's voice cut through Kalen's thoughts, a hint of urgency breaking through the customary Kylosian restraint. Detecting an unidentified vessel at coordinates 45-82-17. Kalen straightened, the familiar rush of alertness dispelling his boredom. Classification: unknown, sir. The signal pattern matches no known species in our database. Kalen moved swiftly to the sensor station, studying the readouts. The vessel was unusual. Its propulsion system appeared primitive by Kylosian standards, yet its energy signature showed bursts of unexpected power. More concerning was its approach vector. It had seemingly appeared from nowhere, suggesting some form of rudimentary but effective cloaking technology. Full scan, he ordered. The results were perplexing. The vessel possessed what appeared to be a crude, faster-than-light drive, yet its power output spiked in ways that suggested capabilities beyond its apparent technological level. Its hull composition was unfamiliar, not as advanced as Kylosian alloys, but with unexpected radiation-dampening properties. Secondary signatures detected within the vessel, Talon reported, voice growing tighter. Life signs confirm. Humans. A ripple of tension spread through the bridge. Humans. The species was known to the Kylosians only through fragmented, concerning reports from third-party sources. They were a rapidly expanding race from a distant spiral arm, marked by internal conflicts yet capable of surprising technological leaps. Intelligence suggested they had advanced from primitive space travel to crude interstellar capability in a mere 2 centuries, an alarming pace by Kylosian standards. Alert status, Kalen commanded, and the bridge lighting shifted to a deep amber. Tactical Officer Zyra, defensive positioning. Communications, standard first contact protocols. Zyra, a compact female with the characteristic pale blue skin and silver-flecked eyes of the Kylosian people, moved to her station with efficient precision. Unlike most of the crew, whose expressions remained carefully neutral, Zyra's face betrayed a hint of anticipation. She had always been more aggressive than most Kylosians, a trait that made her excellent at her job, but occasionally problematic in the rigid hierarchy of their society. Transmitting standard identification and peaceful intent signals on all frequencies, the communications officer reported. No response. The unknown vessel, now visible on the main view screen, continued its erratic course. It was smaller than the Vigilant, with an asymmetrical design that seemed haphazard to Kylosian aesthetic sensibilities. Its hull bore markings in an unfamiliar script, and what appeared to be hastily added armor plating covered certain sections. The vessel is designated Trailblazer, based on hull markings the linguistics specialist offered. They're not following standard approach protocols. They may not know them, Kalen reasoned, though unease settled in his stomach. Continue hailing. Captain, Zyra interrupted, her voice taut with controlled tension. The vessel carries weapons systems. Power signatures suggest they're charged but not targeting systems. Kalen considered his options. Kylosian doctrine strictly forbade aggressive action unless directly attacked, a philosophy that had served them well through centuries of diplomatic relations. Yet everything about this encounter felt wrong. Maintain defensive positioning. Shield modulation pattern delta. Continue hailing. The minutes stretched uncomfortably as the human vessel continued its approach, still ignoring communication attempts. The crew's discomfort was palpable despite their disciplined facades. Kylosians valued predictability, and this situation offered none. Captain, I recommend we fire a warning shot, Zyra stated flatly. Their approach vector will bring them within our defense perimeter in 7 minutes. Negative, tactical officer. We will not initiate hostile action. Zyra's silver-flecked eyes narrowed slightly. With respect, Captain, their behavior suggests hostile intent. High Command directives allow for preemptive defensive measures when. I'm aware of the directives, Kalen interrupted, an unusual breach of Kylosian conversational etiquette that silenced the bridge. We will adhere to first contact protocols until given reason to do otherwise. The tension between them hung in the air, a rare moment of discord in the usually harmonious Kylosian command structure. Captain, the communications officer broke in. We're receiving a response. Audio only. Put it through. The voice that filled the bridge was distinctly female, with a cadence unlike anything in Kylosian speech patterns. It spoke in Standard Galactic, but with an accent none of them had encountered before. This is Captain Eva Rostova of the Earth vessel Trailblazer. Sorry about the delay in responding. We've got some comms issues after a nasty run-in with an ion storm. We're experiencing navigation problems and could use some assistance if you're offering. The casual, almost flippant tone of the message sent a ripple of discomfort through the bridge crew. Kylosian communication was formal, ritualized. This bordered on disrespectful by their standards. Scan confirms damage to their communications array and navigational systems, Talon reported quietly. However, he hesitated. Continue, Sensor Officer, Kalen prompted. Their weapons systems are more extensive than initial scans suggested. They appear to be deliberately masked. The vessel is armed beyond what would be expected for a ship claiming to be lost. Kalen absorbed this information, weighing his duty against his growing suspicion. High Command briefings on humans had emphasized their capacity for deception and opportunism, traits considered deeply dishonorable in Kylosian culture. This is Captain Kalen of the Kylosian Defense Force vessel Vigilant, he responded, keeping his tone neutral but formal. We acknowledge your distress. Please provide details of your required assistance. Another pause, then Captain Rostova's voice returned, still lacking the formality Kalen expected. Good to meet you, Captain Kalen. We've got a damaged navigation array and a destabilized warp field calibrator. We were mapping this sector when we hit an uncharted energy disturbance. Our star charts show we're near Kylosian space, but honestly, we're a bit turnaround. Any help getting our bearings would be appreciated. Transmitting basic navigational data, Kalen responded after a moment's consideration. However, we must inform you that you have entered a disputed border region under Kylosian protection. We will provide assistance under Galactic Convention protocols, but must request visual communication to verify your status. A longer pause followed. Sorry, Captain, our visual communications were damaged in the incident. We're working on repairs. Convenient, Zyra muttered, just loudly enough for Kalen to hear. The view screen suddenly flickered, and a grainy image appeared. A human female with short, dark hair and features that appeared weathered even to Kylosian eyes gazed back at them. Behind her, a bridge bustled with activity, other humans moving with purpose that seemed chaotic compared to the measured movements of a Kylosian crew. "Best we can do for now," Rostova said, her image distorting slightly. "Hope that satisfies protocol." Kalen studied her carefully. The human captain appeared to be in middle age by her species standards, with an intensity in her eyes that suggested sharp intelligence. Her uniform lacked the precision of Kylosian military dress, appearing functional rather than ceremonial. "We detect additional life signs on your vessel," Kalen stated. "Please identify your crew complement and mission parameters." Rostova's expression flickered briefly. Annoyance, perhaps? The subtleties of human facial expressions were not well documented in Kylosian databases. "We're running with a skeleton crew of 15. Science vessel on a deep space cartography mission. My first officer is Commander Patel, and my chief engineer is Jian Li." As if on cue, another human appeared beside Rostova, a male with features suggesting different genetic heritage than the captain. He wore what appeared to be technical gear, with various tools strapped to his person. "Chief Engineer Li," the man introduced himself with a quick nod. "Fascinating design your vessel has, Captain. Crystalline molecular structure in the hull plating? Never seen anything quite like it." Kalen noted the engineer's keen interest, perhaps too keen, in the vigilant specifications. "Your assessment is partially correct, Engineer Li. We can discuss technical matters once your immediate situation is addressed. Our scans show significant damage to your propulsion systems," Talon interjected. "You appear to be operating on auxiliary power." "That's right," Rostova confirmed. "We can limp along, but not at warp speed. Any chance of an escort to the nearest neutral outpost?" Kalen considered. Kylosian protocol called for assisting vessels in distress, but also for extreme caution with unknown species. The safest approach would be to provide navigational data and send them on their way. Yet something about this encounter suggested deeper implications, perhaps an opportunity to gather intelligence on this emerging species. "We can provide escort to Outpost Zeta 12, he decided. "It is a neutral trading hub 3 light years from this position. However, we must insist that you maintain a security distance of no less than 20,000 kilometers and accept our guidance regarding approach vectors." "Sounds reasonable," Rostova agreed, perhaps too readily. "We'll follow your lead, Captain. Thank you for the assistance." As the communication ended, Zyra approached Kalen's position, her posture rigid with disapproval. "Captain, I must formally register concern regarding this course of action. The human vessel shows signs of deliberate concealment. Their story is convenient." "Your concern is noted, Tactical Officer," Kalen responded quietly. "I share your suspicions. However, this represents the first direct Kylosian contact with humans. The intelligence value alone justifies the risk, provided we maintain appropriate safeguards." "They should be disabled and boarded," Zyra insisted. "High Command would support such action given the circumstances." "High Command is not here," Kalen replied, an edge entering his voice. "We will follow protocol while remaining vigilant. Set course for Outpost Zeta 12, minimal warp. Keep weapons systems on standby and shields at maximum." Zyra hesitated, then nodded stiffly. "Yes, Captain." As the Vigilant adjusted course with the Trailblazer following at the prescribed distance, Kalen couldn't shake the sensation that they were being maneuvered into something. The humans had acquiesced too easily, their damaged systems too conveniently aligned with their story. Yet protocol demanded they provide assistance unless given clear cause to do otherwise. The journey toward Outpost Zeta 12 proceeded without incident for the first 6 hours. The Trailblazer maintained formation precisely, neither closing distance nor falling behind. Periodic communications consisted mainly of technical updates, with Engineer Li asking increasingly specific questions about Kylosian propulsion technology, questions that Kalen instructed his crew to answer only in the vaguest terms. "They're scanning us," Talon reported during one such exchange. "Passive scans only, but more comprehensive than would be expected from a vessel in distress." "Let them look," Kalen decided. Our defensive systems cannot be analyzed by such methods. As they approach the outer reaches of the Kora asteroid belt, a dense field of mineral-rich debris that marked the boundary between the disputed region and established neutral space. The sensors detected an anomaly. "Captain, the Trailblazer's engine output is fluctuating," Talon reported with sudden urgency. On the view screen, the human vessel began to drift from its course, its previously stable energy signature pulsing erratically. "They're losing containment in their warp field," the engineering officer announced. "If they don't stabilize, they could experience a catastrophic breach." The communications channel opened without prompting. Captain Rostova's face appeared, now showing signs of genuine concern. "Vigilant, we've got a situation here. Our warp containment is destabilizing. Lee says it's a cascade failure from the original damage." Her image shuddered as the ship apparently absorbed some internal shock. "We're trying to compensate, but we're being pulled toward the asteroid belt." "Maintain your position, Trailblazer," Kalen ordered. "We can extend a tractor beam to stabilize your trajectory." "Negative, Vigilant," Rostova countered. "A tractor beam could trigger a feedback loop in our damaged systems. We need to power down completely and restart. It's our only option." Zyra moved to Kalen's side. "Captain, this is highly suspicious." "The timing." "Captain," Talon's voice cut through the discussion. "Long-range sensors are detecting faint signals from within the asteroid belt, previously dismissed as background radiation, but the pattern suggests artificial origin." Kalen felt the situation rapidly slipping from the orderly Kylosian protocols he had relied on throughout his career. The Trailblazer was now drifting more dramatically toward the asteroid belt, its power fluctuations becoming more severe. Meanwhile, the mysterious signals from within the belt represented an unknown variable, possibly a natural phenomenon, possibly something more sinister. "We're losing life support." Rostova's voice came through, now genuinely alarmed. "Oxygen levels dropping. We need to make emergency landfall on one of the larger asteroids to effect repairs." Sensor scans confirmed decreasing oxygen levels aboard the Trailblazer, but Kalen remained skeptical. Such readings could be manipulated. "The signals from a belt are getting stronger," Talon reported. "Definitely artificial. Pattern suggests automated beacons." Kalen faced a critical decision point. Kylosian protocol strictly forbade entering the hazardous asteroid belt without specific authorization. The unpredictable gravitational fluctuations and dense debris fields made it both dangerous and an ideal hiding place for smugglers and pirates. Following the human vessel and would be a significant breach of regulations. Yet allowing them to proceed alone meant potentially losing track of them entirely, especially if their damaged systems were a ruse to facilitate rendezvous with whatever was generating those signals. "Captain, we cannot allow them to proceed unmonitored," Zyra stated, surprisingly aligned with Kalen's thoughts. "However, pursuing them violates safety protocols and potentially places the Vigilant at risk." Another figure appeared on the bridge, Lisha, the ship's empath. Though not part of the command structure, the empathically gifted Kylosian served as an advisor in complex situations. Her rare ability to sense emotional states even across species considered valuable despite its uncomfortable implications for the typically reserved Kylosians. "Captain," she said softly, approaching with the fluid grace characteristic of her specialized training, "I sense genuine fear from the human vessel, but also purpose, determination. Their distress is real, but it coexists with something more focused." Kalen absorbed this information, weighing it against the tactical situation. If the humans were deliberately heading toward something hidden in the asteroid belt, allowing them to proceed alone was unacceptable. If they were genuinely in danger, abandoning them violated both Kylosian ethics and interstellar conventions. "Tactical Officer Zyra, prepare pursuit course into the asteroid belt," he decided, knowing the order would be recorded and potentially reviewed by superiors who might not approve. "Engineering, reconfigure shields for debris deflection." "Communications, inform the Trailblazer we will provide escort through the belt to a safe location for repairs." Zyra's expression remained neutral, but Kalen detected a hint of surprise. perhaps even respect, in her eyes. Course plotted, Captain. I must formally note that this action contravenes Directive 317, B regarding hazardous region navigation. So noted, Kalen acknowledged. Proceed. The Vigilant altered course, its sleek form following the increasingly erratic path of the Trailblazer as both vessels entered the outer boundary of the asteroid belt. Almost immediately, the ship's systems registered the increased danger. Gravitational eddies pulled at them, while chunks of rock and ice ranging from dust-sized to mountain-sized drifted in complex, overlapping patterns. Deflector shields at maximum, the engineering officer reported, compensating for gravitational fluctuations. The Trailblazer struggled ahead of them, its propulsion systems flaring irregularly as it navigated deeper into the belt. Their communication channel remained open, carrying the sounds of urgent voices and warning alarms from the human vessel. Vigilant, we're detecting a large, stable asteroid approximately 12 minutes ahead. Engineer Lee's voice came through. We're setting course for it. Should provide sufficient shelter for emergency repairs. Kalen nodded to the helm officer, who adjusted their course accordingly. The density of the asteroid field increased as they proceeded, requiring constant adjustments to avoid collision. The Kylosian crew performed admirably, their natural precision well suited to the demands of navigating the treacherous environment. Captain, Talon called out suddenly, the signal source has been identified. It's a ship, a massive ship embedded within one of the larger asteroids ahead. It appears ancient, but there are energy fluctuations consistent with recent activity. Can you identify its origin? Kalen demanded. Negative, sir. The design matches nothing in our database. It predates Kylosian records. The revelation changed the complexion of the situation entirely. An ancient vessel hidden in this remote asteroid belt, showing signs of recent activation. This was no longer just about a potentially deceptive human ship. The Trailblazer is altering course directly toward the unknown vessel, Zyra reported. They appear to be attempting docking procedures. Open channel to Trailblazer, Kalen ordered. Captain Rostova, explain your actions immediately. You claim to be seeking emergency shelter, yet you are attempting to dock with an unidentified vessel. The communication delay stretched uncomfortably before Rostova's face appeared, now devoid of the pretense of panic that had marked their earlier exchanges. I apologize for the deception, Captain Kalen, she said, her tone steady. Our mission parameters prevented full disclosure until this moment. We've been tracking this derelict for months. It contains technology vital to humanity's survival. We couldn't risk losing it to other interested parties. You endangered both our vessels with your charade, Kalen responded coldly. Explain why we should not consider this an hostile act. Rostova's expression hardened. The technology aboard that derelict could mean the difference between extinction and survival for my species. We're facing environmental collapse on multiple colony worlds due to terraforming failures. That ship contains advanced geological stabilization technology, at least according to the fragmented records we've pieced together. We needed to find it before others did. Other interested parties, such as the Kylosians, Zyra interjected, such as whoever is approaching from the other side of the belt. Engineer Lee cut in, his face appearing beside Rostova's. 3 vessels, heavily armed, moving fast. Pirates, most likely. The energy surge when we initiated docking procedures must have alerted them. Talon confirmed the information almost immediately. 3 vessels approaching, Captain. Configuration matches the Scavenger Collective, known raiders in this sector. They've had previous hostile encounters with Kylosian patrols. The situation had escalated beyond anything covered by standard protocol. Kalen now faced not only the deceptive humans, but also approaching hostile forces, all while navigating a hazardous asteroid field and in proximity to a mysterious ancient vessel of unknown capabilities. Tactical alert, he ordered. Weapons systems online. Zyra, defensive positioning. The derelict systems are becoming more active, Talon reported. Power signatures increasing across multiple sections. It appears to be responding to the Trailblazer's docking attempt. On the view screen, the massive form of the ancient vessel became visible as they drew closer. It was indeed enormous, at least 5 times the size of the Vigilant, with an organic, flowing design unlike anything in Kylosian records. Parts of it were embedded within the asteroid, as though it had crashed or deliberately hidden itself ages ago. Lights flickered across its surface in patterns suggesting awakening systems. Scavenger vessels are charging weapons, Zyra announced. They'll be in firing range in 3 minutes. Captain Kalen, Rostova's voice cut through the tension. I propose a temporary alliance. Neither of us can afford to let the scavengers claim this derelict, and neither of us wants to engage in combat in this asteroid field. We can coordinate our defenses. Kalen considered his options. Protocol offered no guidance for this scenario. The humans had lied, yes, but their explanation held a certain logic. The scavengers were a known threat, opportunistic and dangerous, and the mysterious derelict represented an unknown factor that could not be allowed to fall into hostile hands. Agreed, he decided. Tactical Officer Zyra, coordinate defensive measures with the Trailblazer. Focus on repelling the scavenger vessels without causing catastrophic damage that might trigger asteroid collisions. What followed was unlike anything in Kalen's experience. The precision and discipline of Kylosian tactics melded with the improvisational approach of the humans in unexpected ways. The Vigilant provided covering fire with its superior targeting systems, while the Trailblazer revealed weapons capabilities far beyond what their scans had detected, including what appeared to be prototype phase cannons that, while unstable, delivered devastating results against the first scavenger vessel to come within range. They've broken formation, Zyra reported with the barest hint of satisfaction. 2 attempting to circle behind the asteroid, 1 maintaining frontal assault. Captain, Engineer Lee's voice came through the communication channel. We've established preliminary interface with the derelict systems. There's something you both need to know. It's booby-trapped. The activation sequence we triggered by docking has initiated some kind of security protocol. We're detecting massive energy build-up in its core. Can you disengage? Kalen demanded. Negative. We're locked into the docking clamps, and the energy buildup appears to be accelerating with every attempt to access its systems. Lee's voice betrayed genuine concern. This technology is beyond anything we've encountered. Some kind of self-destruct meant to prevent unauthorized access. The resulting explosion would destabilize the entire asteroid field, Talon calculated grimly. And the radiation signature suggests it could trigger a chain reaction through the nebula gases permeating this region. The situation had deteriorated from a tactical challenge to a potential catastrophe. Even as the Vigilant and Trailblazer continued to coordinate their defense against the persistent scavenger vessels, the ancient derelict systems continued their ominous power buildup. I'm going aboard, Lee announced suddenly. If I can access the primary systems directly, I might be able to abort the sequence. That's suicide, Rostova objected. The radiation levels alone. It's our only option, Lee insisted. Besides, this is what I came for, direct access to the technology. I just didn't expect it to be trying to kill us in the process. His attempt at humor fell flat amid the crisis. Kalen made a swift decision. Lieutenant Merrick, accompany Engineer Lee. Your knowledge of ancient power systems may prove useful. He turned to his second officer. Coordinate with Captain Rostova. Continue defensive operations against the scavengers while we address the derelict situation. The next 20 minutes passed in a blur of coordinated chaos. The Vigilance shields absorbed repeated impacts from scavenger weapons while returning precisely calculated fire. The Trailblazer revealed surprising maneuverability for a vessel supposedly damaged, executing complex evasive patterns that would have impressed even Kylosian tactical instructors. Meanwhile, Lee and Merrick, joined by a human technician, worked frantically within the ancient derelict. Their communications came through sporadically, interspersed with technical jargon and occasional exclamations of discovery or despair. The system architecture is unlike anything I've ever seen, Merrick reported. It appears to utilize quantum entanglement principles our science has only theorized. Less admiration, more deactivation, Lee responded tersely. The power buildup is reaching critical levels. We need to find the emergency override. The scavengers, realizing the potential value of the derelict despite the danger, pressed their attack with increasing desperation. One of their vessels managed to approach the asteroid from below, attempting to establish its own connection to the ancient ship. We can't allow them to interface with the derelict, Rostova warned. It could accelerate the destabilization. Agreed, Kalen responded, surprising himself with how naturally cooperation with the human captain had developed under pressure. Zyra, target their docking mechanisms. Precision fire only. We cannot risk further damage to the asteroid. The Vigilance weapons lanced out with characteristic Kylosian precision, severing the scavenger vessel's docking apparatus without destroying the ship itself. The disabled vessel drifted away, its systems clearly compromised, but its crew likely alive, a distinction that would have been irrelevant to Zyra's tactical calculations but mattered to Kalen's sense of proportional response. "We found it!" Lee's excited voice broke through. "The override sequence. It's not what we expected. This isn't a weapons system at all. It's some kind of preservation chamber. The energy buildup is a defense mechanism, yes, but designed to protect something inside, not to self-destruct. Can you deactivate it?" Kalen asked. "Yes, but we need to decide what to do with what's inside. There's data here, enormous amounts of it, and something physical too, in suspended animation. I think it might be a survivor from whatever civilization built this ship." The revelation stunned both crews into momentary silence. The implications were enormous. A living representative of an unknown ancient civilization, preserved along with what might be the accumulated knowledge of their species. "The last scavenger vessel is retreating," Zyra reported, breaking the silence. "They appear to have sustained critical damage to their propulsion systems." "Captain," Merrick's voice came through clearly now, "we've stabilized the derelict systems. The immediate danger has passed, but we need to make decisions about this discovery. The preservation technology alone represents an advancement beyond current Kylosian capabilities. And the database, preliminary assessment, suggests it contains technological information that could advance both our civilizations by centuries." Kalen exchanged a long look with Rostova through the view screen. The human captain's expression was complex, hopeful, calculating, wary. "I propose a joint quarantine zone," Kalen suggested finally. "This discovery is too significant for either of our species to claim exclusively. We establish a neutral research station, jointly operated, with strict protocols for information sharing." Rostova considered this, her gaze steady. "My mission was to secure this technology for Earth. My superiors won't be happy with a sharing arrangement, and mine would prefer I simply destroyed the derelict rather than risk technological contamination," Kalen countered. "Yet here we are, both choosing a middle path." A hint of a smile touched Rostova's lips. "The pragmatic approach. I can work with that, but I'll need guarantees, equal access, joint research teams." "Agreed, with appropriate safeguards for both sides." Kalen turned to Zyra, whose expression remained carefully neutral despite what must have been significant reservations. "Tactical officer, begin formulating security protocols for a joint quarantine operation." As the immediate crisis subsided, the two vessels established stable positions near the derelict. Emergency repair teams worked to address damage sustained during the battle, while specialist crews from both ships began the delicate process of stabilizing and securing the ancient vessel. Kalen retired to his private quarters briefly to compose his report to high command. He chose his words carefully, emphasizing the strategic importance of the discovery while downplaying his own violations of protocol. He highlighted the capabilities demonstrated by the humans, both their technological prowess and their capacity for deception, while also noting their willingness to ultimately cooperate in the face of a common threat. Hours later, standing in a makeshift conference room aboard the Vigilant, Kalen faced Captain Rostova across a table displaying holographic representations of the derelict and the preliminary data they had managed to extract. My superiors have provisionally approved our arrangement, Rostova informed him. They're dispatching a science vessel and a security detail. They should arrive within 2 standard weeks. The Kylosian High Command has expressed significant reservations, Kalen admitted, but they have authorized me to maintain our position and establish preliminary security measures pending their full review. They're not happy you broke protocol, Rostova observed shrewdly. Just as your superiors are not pleased you failed to secure exclusive access to the technology, Kalen countered. A genuine smile spread across Rostova's face. Touché, Captain. It seems we both have some explaining to do. Indeed, Kalen allowed himself a small breach of Kylosian reserve, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. But I suspect neither of us regrets our decisions. What do you make of our discovery? Rostova asked, gesturing to the holographic display of the preservation chamber where a humanoid form remained in suspended animation. An actual living being from a civilization that may predate both of ours by millennia. The historical implications alone are secondary to the strategic implications, Zyra interjected as she entered the conference room. This discovery will change the balance of power in this sector, regardless of our intentions. Your tactical officer has a point, Rostov acknowledged. But perhaps change is necessary. Stagnation can be as dangerous as chaos. The observation struck Kalen as quintessentially human, embracing change rather than fearing it. It ran counter to everything Kylosian culture valued, yet he could not dismiss the wisdom in it. We should prepare for the joint inspection, he said, returning to practical matters. Engineer Lee and Lieutenant Merrick have established stable monitoring systems, but we need more comprehensive security protocols before proceeding further. The following days established a tenuous working relationship between the crews of the Vigilant and the Trailblazer. Cultural differences created frequent friction. The humans' informal approach and willingness to improvise clashed with Kylosian precision and adherence to procedure. Yet progress was made. The derelict systems were gradually mapped and understood, though the most sensitive areas remained locked behind security measures they had not yet deciphered. On the 7th day, as Kalen reviewed security footage from the joint operation, he paused on an image of Engineer Lee working alongside Lieutenant Merrick. Despite their different approaches, they had developed an effective collaboration, each complementing the other's strengths. It was, he realized, a microcosm of what might be possible on a larger scale. Later, standing on the Vigilance observation deck, Kalen watched as the Trailblazer executed a supply transfer with one of the smaller asteroids they had converted into a temporary base. The human vessel's movements were less graceful than a Kylosian ship would have managed, but there was an adaptability to their approach that he had come to appreciate. Captain Rostova joined him, her reflection appearing in the transparent aluminum of the observation window. Penny for your thoughts, Captain? It's a human expression. I was contemplating change, Kalen admitted. For millennia, the Kylosian way has been one of careful advancement, of stability above all else. We have avoided the violent upheavals that have marked the histories of many species, including humans, Rostov acknowledged. Our history is littered with conflicts and revolutions. Yet look at what you have accomplished in such a short time, Kalen observed. Your adaptability is impressive, concerning, but impressive. Rostova laughed softly. That's probably the most diplomatic description of humanity I've ever heard. Kalen turned to face her directly. When your vessel first appeared, our database categorized humans as a potential threat based on limited intelligence. Alert! Enemy warship identified. Humans are here. That was the automated warning our systems generated. And now, Rostova asked, now I would classify your species as a complex variable in the equation of galactic stability. Dangerous, yes, but also necessary, perhaps. The human captain nodded slowly. I'll take that as a compliment. For what it's worth, my report will emphasize the benefits of cooperation with the Kylosians, despite your intimidating technology and obsession with protocol. As they stood in companionable silence, watching the slow dance of ships and asteroids against the backdrop of the nebula, Kalen reflected on the profound shift the last week had brought. The comfortable predictability that had defined his career, indeed his civilization, had been disrupted. The humans were here, and the galaxy would never be quite the same. The ancient derelict floated silently nearby, its secrets still largely unknown. Whatever civilization had created, it was far beyond both human and Kylosian understanding. A humbling reminder that they were perhaps not as advanced as either had believed. The preserved being within remained in stasis, neither dead nor truly alive, a bridge to knowledge that could transform both their societies. "Do you think we're ready for what's in there?" Rostova asked quietly, her usual bravado momentarily set aside. "Genuinely ready, I mean, as species." It was a profound question, one that Kylosians would typically spend cycles deliberating through formal philosophical councils. Kalen found himself responding with uncharacteristic immediacy. "No," he admitted, "but readiness may be a luxury neither of us can afford. The universe rarely waits for optimal timing." Rostova smiled. "That's practically a human sentiment, Captain. You might want to be careful. Your high command would disapprove." "They disapprove of much I have done these past days," Kalen acknowledged. "Yet I believe the path we have chosen, however unconventional, serves the greater Kylosian good." Their conversation was interrupted by a priority alert. Lieutenant Merrick's voice came through the communication system with unusual urgency. "Captain, we've detected increased activity in the derelict's central chamber. The preservation pod is initiating some kind of awakening sequence." "We gave no such authorization," Kalen responded sharply. "It appears to be automated, sir, perhaps triggered by our continued presence or scanning activities." Kalen and Rostova exchanged alarmed glances. "We'll be right there," Rostova responded, already moving toward the exit. They arrived at the Joint Command post established near the primary docking port of the derelict to find both crews in controlled chaos. Holographic displays showed energy fluctuations throughout the ancient vessel, centered on the preservation chamber, where their mysterious passenger remained in suspended animation. "Status report," Kalen demanded. Engineer Lee looked up from a console he had modified with a peculiar hybrid of human and Kylosian technology. "The preservation system is executing what appears to be a predetermined revival protocol. We didn't trigger it deliberately. It seems to be responding to having maintained stable power levels for 7 consecutive days." "Can we abort?" Rostova asked. "Inadvisable," Talon responded, surprising Kalen with his assertiveness. "The energy cascade is too advanced. Interrupting now could destabilize the entire system. So we're about to meet someone who's been asleep for possibly thousands of years," Rostova summarized. "Anyone want to place bets on whether they'll be friendly?" "This is no time for human levity," Zyra scolded, but Kalen detected a note of anxiety beneath her formal exterior. Even the disciplined tactical officer was unnerved by the unprecedented situation. "Establish security protocols," Kalen ordered. "Zyra, coordinate defensive positioning with the Trailblazer security team, non-threatening but prepared for any contingency." The minutes that followed seemed to stretch into hours as they monitored the derelict systems. The energy patterns shifted in complex ways, suggesting sophisticated processes beyond their understanding. "Life support is activating in adjacent chambers," Merrick reported. "Atmospheric composition adjusting, too. It's attempting to match what we've been breathing. The system is adapting to us." "Intelligent design," Lee murmured appreciatively. "It's learning from our presence, modifying its environment to be compatible." Finally, the indicator stabilized, and a new alert appeared on their monitoring systems. "The preservation chamber is opening," Talon announced quietly. By prior agreement, a joint team consisting of 3 Kylosians and 3 humans approached the chamber, heavily monitored by both ships. Kalen and Rostova observed through their representatives' visual feeds, neither willing to directly expose themselves to an unknown entity of such potential significance. The chamber, located deep within the ancient vessel, was unlike anything they had encountered. Its architecture defied conventional understanding, with flowing, organic lines that seemed to bend light in subtle ways. The preservation pod at its center resembled a translucent cocoon, its surface rippling with patterns of light that shifted like living things. Remarkable engineering, one of the human scientists whispered, the sound carrying clearly through the feed. The entire structure appears to be a single, complex organism-machine hybrid. The pod's surface suddenly became transparent, revealing its occupant. The being inside was humanoid, but with distinct differences from either humans or Kailosians. Its skin had a faint luminescent quality, its proportions more elongated than either species. Its features were delicate yet alien, with no clear indication of gender by either human or Kailosian standards. Most striking were what appeared to be neural interfaces embedded throughout its body. Not crude mechanical implants, but seamless integrations that suggested technology so advanced it had become indistinguishable from biology. The pod completed its opening sequence, and the being's eyes opened. They were iridescent, shifting colors in ways that seemed to reflect the thoughts behind them. It sat up with fluid grace, regarding the assembled team with an expression of calm interest. Then it spoke, not audibly, but directly into the minds of everyone present, including those observing remotely. The sensation was startling but not uncomfortable, like a thought that originated elsewhere, yet felt natural within one's own consciousness. "You have awakened me," it communicated. "I am grateful." The words came through in perfect Kailosian to Kalen and his crew, and apparently in equally flawless English to the humans, judging by their reactions. "I am Kalen, captain of the Kailosian vessel Vigilant," Kalen responded verbally, uncertain if the being could perceive his thoughts as well. "And this is Captain Eva Rostova of the human vessel Trailblazer. We discovered your ship embedded in an asteroid. May we ask who you are?" The being tilted its head slightly, a gesture somehow familiar despite its alienness. "I am Eli Oren, last observer of the predecessors. My vessel was the Eternal Vigil." A pause, as though considering how to express complex concepts. "I have slept for what you would measure as approximately 18,000 of your years, awaiting compatible intelligence." The revelation sent a ripple of astonishment through both crews. 18,000 years, a time span that dwarfed the entire recorded history of either civilization. "Compatible intelligence?" Rostova questioned. "You were waiting for someone to find you?" "Yes and no," Eliron responded. "The Vigil was programmed to revive me when beings of sufficient technological and ethical development discovered it. Your presence, your careful approach to my vessel, your cooperation despite your obvious differences, all were factors in triggering my awakening." "You were observing us while in stasis?" Kalen asked, intrigued despite his caution. "Not consciously. The Vigil itself is semi-sentient, designed to evaluate potential contact species according to parameters established before I entered preservation. It determined that together, your species meet the minimum threshold for interaction." "Together?" Zyra's voice carried a note of skepticism. "Not individually?" Illyrin's gaze shifted to the tactical officer with unnerving precision, despite communicating through a remote feed. "Correct. The Kailosians demonstrate advanced technological understanding and ethical stability, but show rigidity that limits adaptation. Humans display remarkable adaptability and intuitive leaps, but lack the stability and patience for truly long-term advancement. Together, you complement each other's limitations in ways that suggest potential." The assessment, delivered without judgment but with clinical precision, created an uncomfortable silence. It was Rostova who broke it. "You said to the last observer." "Observer of what? And what happened to your civilization?" Illyrin's mental voice took on a more somber tone. "The predecessors achieved technological singularity approximately 22,000 years ago by your measure. We transcended biological limitations, merged with our technology, expanded throughout this galactic arm. But advancement without purpose becomes hollow. Many chose to ascend beyond physical form entirely. Others fractured into competing philosophical factions. Conflict followed. Your people destroyed themselves, Kalen surmised. Not destroyed. Transformed, fragmented, ascended, declined, all simultaneously. What you might call a civilization collapse, but on a scale and of a nature difficult to comprehend. Illyrian's gaze seemed to turn inward, and others like me chose a different path. We became observers, preserving knowledge, watching for emerging intelligences that might benefit from our experiences, both our achievements and our failures. And you believe we qualify? Lee asked, his scientific curiosity evident. You have potential, Ilioran corrected. You stand at a crossroads similar to one my people faced long ago. Your technologies are primitive compared to what the predecessors achieved, but the patterns of your development are recognizable. You mention knowledge, Rostovas said, focusing on the practical. Are you offering to share the technology of your people? Not indiscriminately, Ilioran cautioned. The database within the Vigil contains selected knowledge deemed appropriate for developing civilizations. Access will be calibrated to your demonstrated capabilities and ethical frameworks. Who determines what's appropriate? Zyra challenged. By what authority do you judge our worthiness? Ilioran regarded her without apparent offense. A valid question. The answer is complex, but in essence, I do not judge worthiness. I assess readiness. The distinction is crucial. All intelligences have inherent worth. Readiness simply determines what knowledge can be responsibly assimilated without triggering cascading harm. The philosophical nuance of the response was typically Kailosian in its careful precision, yet expressed with a directness more reminiscent of human communication. Kalen found himself impressed despite his lingering caution. What exactly is this knowledge? He asked. You mentioned your people achieved technological singularity. Such information could dramatically alter the balance of power in our region of space. It includes advancements in sustainable energy production, ecological stabilization, medical technologies, and certain propulsion improvements, Ilioran explained. Deliberately excluded are weapons technologies, artificial intelligence beyond your current ethical frameworks, and dimensional manipulation. The goal is to offer tools for stability and growth, not dominance. The days that followed were a whirlwind of diplomatic maneuvering and scientific revelation. Both Kailosian High Command and Earth's Central Authority dispatched additional vessels once the significance of the discovery became clear. Formal protocols were established for interaction with Ilioran and access to the knowledge within the Vigil. The ancient being seemed neither surprised nor disturbed by the increased attention, maintaining a serene demeanor throughout intense questioning from both sides. Ilioran had explained that predecessor biology recognized 5 distinct biological configurations rather than the binary gender systems of humans or Kailosians, demonstrated incredible patience with their primitive translation attempts and technological limitations. 2 weeks after the awakening, Kalen found himself in yet another diplomatic session, this time with Admiral Vorin, the highest-ranking Kailosian official to arrive on site. The Admiral's traditional views were well known, and his skepticism regarding cooperation with humans had only increased since his arrival. This arrangement compromises Kailosian security protocols at every level, Vorin stated flatly, addressing Kalen directly. The humans cannot be trusted with access to predecessor technology. Their history demonstrates a consistent pattern of weaponizing scientific advancement. With respect, Admiral, Kalen responded carefully. Ilioran has made it clear that knowledge transfer will only proceed with joint participation. Any attempt to exclude the humans would likely result in a complete shutdown of access, and we're to simply accept the dictates of this. Vorin's tone conveyed deep suspicion. Its motives remain unclear at best. Its actions have been consistent with its stated purpose, Kalen argued. The preliminary medical data alone has already proven invaluable. The cellular regeneration techniques shared thus far exceed anything in current Kailosian science. Precisely my point, Vorin countered. Such rapid technological infusion destabilizes our carefully managed advancement protocols. The Kylosian way has sustained us for millennia precisely because we integrate new discoveries methodically with full consideration of societal impact. The argument continued in circles until interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Narain, the Kylosian medical specialist who had been working most closely with the predecessor data. Admiral, Captain, he greeted them with the formal bow typical of his scientific caste. I apologize for the interruption, but I believed you would want to be informed immediately. We've confirmed the efficacy of the regenerative protocol on multiple tissue types. The implications for treatment of conditions previously considered terminal are significant. The clinical understatement was typical of Kylosian scientific communication, but Kalen recognized the barely contained excitement beneath Dr. Narain's professional exterior. How significant? Admiral Vorin inquired. Conservative estimates suggest a 30% reduction in mortality rates across 17 major disease categories, Dr. Narain replied. And that represents only our initial, limited application of the principles involved. Even Vorin could not dismiss such findings. I see. Continue your research, Doctor. Ensure all protocols are documented according to standard procedures. After Dr. Narain departed, Vorin turned back to Kalen with a marginally less adversarial expression. This doesn't resolve the security concerns, Captain. However, I acknowledge the potential benefits. The humans have shown similar advancements in applying the knowledge to their environmental restoration techniques, Kalen added. Engineer Lee has adapted predecessor principles to address atmospheric degradation on their colony worlds with promising initial results. Vorin's expression soured at the mention of human achievements. Their environmental problems are largely self-inflicted, the result of reckless expansion without proper planning. Perhaps, Kalen conceded, yet their adaptability in addressing those problems may offer insights valuable to our own long-term planning. The Admiral studied him with growing suspicion. You've developed an unusual appreciation for human methodology, Captain. Some might question whether your judgment has been compromised by this prolonged exposure. My judgment remains sound, Kalen responded firmly. I simply recognize that different approaches can have complementary value. Their discussion was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Joint Security Team. Captain Kalen, Admiral Vorin, we have a situation. Scavenger vessels have been detected approaching from multiple vectors. Far larger force than our previous encounter. Kalen accessed the tactical display immediately. Numbers: 17 vessels confirmed, with more suspected beyond sensor range. They've established a blockade formation around the asteroid field. This appears to be a coordinated operation rather than an opportunistic raid. Admiral Vorin took command instantly. All Kylosian vessels to battle stations. Establish defensive perimeter around the derelict. Admiral, Kalen interjected, the human ships will follow their own protocols. Vorin cut him off. Our priority is securing the predecessor vessel and its occupant. Kalen knew better than to challenge a direct order in an emergency situation, but he activated a secondary communication channel to the Trailblazer as they moved to implement the Admiral's commands. Captain Rostova, are you monitoring the situation? Affirmative. Her voice came through, tense but controlled. We're picking up multiple hostile contacts. Your Admiral seems intent on excluding us from the defense planning. Standard Kylosian emergency protocols, Kalen explained. However, I believe a coordinated response will be more effective. The scavengers appear to have significantly reinforced since our last encounter. Agreed. My superiors are being typically bureaucratic, but I've convinced them that immediate action takes precedence over protocol. A hint of her characteristic dryness returned. Apparently, imminent destruction is good for cutting through red tape. Do your vessels have functional cloaking capabilities? Kalen asked, recalling the partial stealth technology the Trailblazer had demonstrated initially. Limited, Rostova admitted. Enough to mask approach vectors, but not for sustained concealment under active scanning. it may provide a tactical advantage nonetheless. I suggest. Captain Kalen, Admiral Voron's sharp voice interrupted. Why are you communicating independently with the human vessels? Coordinating defensive strategies, Admiral, Kalen responded smoothly. The humans have tactical capabilities that complement our own. Captain Rostova's vessels can execute flanking maneuvers using their partial cloaking technology, while our ships maintain the primary defensive line. Voron's expression suggested he wanted to object on principle, but the tactical logic was sound. Very well, but all movements will be coordinated through Central Kylosian Command. Of course, Admiral. As the combined fleet prepared for the approaching threat, Elioran requested a direct communication with both the Kylosian and human leadership. This conflict is unnecessary, the predecessor stated once the channel was established. The knowledge within the Vigil is not meant to be hoarded or fought over. We are defending your vessel and yourself from hostile forces, Admiral Voron responded stiffly. You misunderstand, Elioran corrected gently. I meant that there is no need to risk lives in defense. The Vigil has its own protective measures that have remained dormant until now. What kind of protective measures? Commander Bradford, the ranking human officer who had arrived with their reinforcements, asked with poorly concealed interest. Non-destructive containment technology, Elioran explained. It can create a localized stasis field that will immobilize approaching vessels without harming their occupants. How large an area can this field cover? Rostova inquired. Sufficient for the current threat, Elioran assured them. However, I require authorization from both your peoples to activate these systems. The Vigil's protocols demand consent from all allied species before deploying any technology that affects external entities. The request triggered immediate debate among both human and Kylosian leadership. The Admiral's advisors urged caution, concerned about exposure to unknown technology, while the human representatives seemed eager to witness the predecessor defenses in action. This technology was not mentioned in your initial disclosures, Admiral Voron noted with suspicion. It became relevant only when external threat was imminent, Elioran explained simply. The Vigil reveals capabilities contextually when understanding and need align. As the debate continued, the scavenger fleet drew closer, now clearly visible on long-range sensors. Their formation suggested a coordinated attack plan far more sophisticated than typical raider tactics. Time is limited, Kalen pointed out. The scavengers will be within weapons range in 17 minutes. We must decide. In the end, pragmatism prevailed. Both Admiral Voron and Commander Bradford authorized Elioran to activate the Vigil's defensive systems, though both insisted on maintaining their vessels in battle readiness as a contingency. The activation process was unlike anything Kalen had witnessed in his years of service. Elioran interfaced directly with the Vigil's systems, its neural implants glowing with increasing intensity as it established connection. The ancient vessel responded immediately, previously dark sections illuminating with the same flowing patterns visible in the preservation chamber. Fascinating, Lee murmured as he monitored the power fluctuations. The energy signature is completely novel. It's as though the system is drawing power from somewhere else, not conventional space. Dimensional tap, one of the Kylosian scientists suggested. Theoretical in our physics, but containment field activating, Talon announced, interrupting the scientific speculation. Energy wave expanding from the derelict in all directions. On the tactical display, they watched as a barely visible ripple of energy expanded outward from the Vigil, growing to encompass a vast sphere of space surrounding the asteroid field. As it reached the approaching scavenger vessels, each ship abruptly ceased motion, hanging motionless in space as though frozen in time. Containment complete, Elioran communicated. The vessels and their occupants are unharmed, but held in temporal suspension. They will remain so until deliberately released. The assembled officers stared at the display in stunned silence. Even Admiral Voron seemed momentarily at a loss for words. The demonstration of power had been absolute yet restrained, precisely calibrated to neutralize the threat without destruction. How long can this field be maintained? Commander Bradford finally asked. Indefinitely, if necessary, Elioran replied. Though, I would suggest a more constructive resolution once you have determined your course of action regarding the aggressors. The incident marked a turning point in the joint operation. The unmistakable demonstration of predecessor technology's superiority rendered many of the ongoing squabbles between human and Kailosian factions suddenly petty by comparison. The perspective shift was profound. Both civilizations were forced to recognize how much they had yet to learn. In the weeks that followed, a more formalized joint research initiative took shape. The scavenger vessels were eventually released, minus their weapons systems, and escorted from the region with stern warnings enhanced by the very visceral memory of their complete helplessness against the ancient technology. Elioran continued to share selected knowledge from the Vigil's vast database, carefully calibrated to each species' existing technological framework and adjusted based on demonstrated ethical application. The process was sometimes frustrating for both recipients. Humans chafed at the deliberate pacing, while Kailosians struggled with concepts that challenged their established scientific paradigms. 3 months after the initial discovery, Kalen stood once again on the observation deck of the Vigilant, now part of a much larger joint installation established around the asteroid that housed the Vigil. Beside him stood Captain Rostova, recently promoted to Commodore for her role in establishing the unprecedented cooperative venture. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Rostova asked, gesturing toward the bustling activity visible through the viewport. Human and Kailosian vessels moved in coordinated patterns around the central facility, while shuttlecraft ferried personnel and materials between ships. "When your sensors first picked up our enemy warship," Kalen allowed himself a small smile, a gesture that had become marginally less rare in recent months. "I imagined several potential outcomes. None remotely resembled this. Life's funny that way," Rostova observed. "You set out to find one thing and discover something completely unexpected that changes everything." Elioran approached them, moving with its characteristic fluid grace. The predecessor had taken to spending time observing the day-to-day interactions between humans and Kailosians, apparently finding their developing relationship as worthy of study as they found its ancient knowledge. "Your cooperation progresses," it noted. "There is still friction, misunderstanding, occasional conflict, but the pattern trends toward integration rather than division." "Don't get too optimistic," Rostova cautioned with a wry smile. "We've still got plenty of bureaucrats on both sides trying to claim exclusive advantages. Yet they increasingly find themselves overruled by pragmatists," Elioran observed. "Those who recognize that together, you achieve more than separately." Kalen considered this assessment. The first joint research papers have proven remarkably successful. The atmospheric stabilization protocols developed by the mixed teams exceed what either species might have achieved independently. "A promising beginning," Elioran agreed, "though the greater challenges lie ahead, as they always do." As if to emphasize this point, a priority communication interrupted their conversation. "Captain Kalen, your presence is requested in the diplomatic center. High Command has sent new directives regarding knowledge-sharing protocols." Kalen acknowledged the message, then turned back to his companions. "Duty calls. The eternal struggle between progress and procedure continues. Need backup." Rostova offered with a hint of mischief. "I've become quite skilled at annoying Kailosian diplomats into reasonable concessions." "A talent I've witnessed firsthand," Kalen replied dryly. "Perhaps you could join me after I've assessed the situation. Your particular brand of persuasion is best deployed strategically." As he departed, Kalen reflected on the profound changes of the past months. His career, once defined by unwavering adherence to Kailosian tradition, had evolved into something far more complex and, he had to admit, satisfying. The initial alarm, "Enemy warship identified. Humans are here," had transformed into a very different reality. The humans were indeed here. And despite all expectations, that fact had opened possibilities neither civilization could have achieved alone. Whatever challenges lay ahead would be faced not as isolated species, but as reluctant yet increasingly effective partners in a universe far more complex than either had imagined.